Hey guys, welcome back. Happy Thursday. Hope you had a really good day yesterday. We are jumping right back into percents today, so I don't want to waste any of your time. We'll get right to it. As always, please answer your PDN questions. Pause the video as you write down these questions and solve them on your paper, and then come back and press play on the video so that we can check our answers together. Go ahead and pause now. Okay, number one said 63%, and we needed to write it as both sorry, you can see Elizabeth's drawings there. You need to write it as both a decimal and a fraction. So if I'm starting with 63%, I know that as a fraction, it's going to be over 100. We actually cannot simplify that. That's our final answer. And then as a decimal, 63 over 100 is 0.630 and 63/100ths. For letter B, sorry, it says 90%. I know that 90% is 90 over 100. Because all percent's over 100, I can simplify that to 9 over 10. When I write that as a decimal, I'd write it as 0.9. If you put it as 0.90, your answer is correct. But as we are moving closer and closer to 7th grade, we want to start writing our answers more as 7th grade answers. So try and put it as 0.9. Last 2 days, we have reviewed percents and fractions and decimals and changing them all between each other. Today, we're going to review actually using that to solve percent problems. The thing we need to remember is that part over total equals percent, and we want to remember that that percent is always out of 100. If we can decide which number is our part and which number is the total, then each problem should be fairly straightforward. Example 1. There are 20 students in the class. 15 of the students turned in their homework on time. What percent of the students turned in their homework on time? I know that I'm trying to solve for percent, and I know that I have a part and a total, and I have to decide which number is my part and which number is my total. I'm going to be working with the numbers 15 and 20 to decide which one is my part and which is my total. There are 20 students in the class, so I know that that number is going to be my total. Why is this my total? Because it's the total number of kids in the class. If 20 is my total, then I know 15 is going to be my part. 15 is my part. Why is 15 my part? 15 is my part because only part of the class turned in their work. Now that I've decided on my part and my total, I'm ready to come over and solve my question. Okay, so this is examples. And this is number 1. I know that it's part over total. I know that my part is 15 and my total is 20, and I'm trying to make it a percent, which I know is going to be out of 100. Once I set up my ratio like this, 20 times 5 is 100, so 15 times 5 is going to give me my number out of 100, which is 75. So 75% of the class turned in work. Okay, so key was deciding which was the part, which was the total, and then just putting it out of 100. Number 2, Aaron has 10 siblings. 4 of them are girls. What percent of the siblings are girls? Okay, what is the part? The part is going to be 4. Why is 4 the part? Because only part of the siblings are girls. What is the total? The total is 10. Why is that the total? Because the whole number of siblings, the total number of siblings he has, is 10. I would then say, again, always my 2 categories where percent problems are going to be part over total. I know that it's 4 out of 10. I want my percent to be out of 100. What do I do to 10 to get to 100? Times 10. 4 times 10 gives me 40 out of 100, which means 40% are girls. I could also ask you what percent are boys. And to figure out what percent are boys, if you know 40% are girls, then we're going to say that the rest of the family identifies as boys. So 40% were girls, that would leave 60% that are boys, which would get us up, are boys, which would get us up to 100%. That's not a question that I asked right here, but it's a question that you should still be ready to answer to show that you're ready for 7th grade. Okay, you have 5 practice problems to do today. Your key is going to be deciding which is the part, which is the total. Once you are ready, pause this video and solve them, and come back when you're ready to check your answers. Okay, Candace gets $20 for babysitting each week. She spends $8 at the corner store. What percentage of her weekly budget does she spend at the corner store? We know that this is a part over total problem. All we have to decide is which number is our part, which is our total. We have 8 and 20. I know 20 is the total because that's the total amount of money she has, and 8 is the part because she spent part of her money at the corner store. Changing that to a percent, I multiply times 5, I multiply times 5, and I get 40%. Number 2, again, part over total. It says that they spent $62 on decorations and they budgeted $50. This one's kind of tricky because our total is $50. Even though it's the smaller number, that's the total amount that they've budgeted, which means 62 is the part that they spent, the part of their budget they spent on decorations. If I put it over 100, I would multiply times 2, I would multiply times 2, and I get 124. And the reason that this percent is over 100 is because they went over budget. They spent more than they were supposed to on their decorations, which means they went over budget. They spent over 100% of their budget on it. For number 3, says there are 15 sixth grade girls basketball players and 8 of them made their free throws. What percent of the players made their shot? So part over total. I know that the total number of girls on the team was 15. I know the part that made it was 8. I'm going to set this equal to 100. Oh, and I run into a problem. My problem is that 15 doesn't go to 100. So I'm going to have to actually do a little bit of extra work for this. If I can't get to 100, I could still change this number to a decimal. Remember, anytime we have a denominator that doesn't get to 100, we have to change it to a decimal. So I'm going to do 8 divided by 15. 15 goes into 8 0 times. 15 goes into 85 times. 5 times 15 is 75. I subtract and I get 5. Bring down another 0. 15 goes into 50 3 times. 3 times 15 is 45. Now, usually we would keep going, but remember, when we're working with percents, we can always stop at the hundredths place. So this is equal to 0.53. And then if I need to change that decimal back to a percent, I would say 53%. Even though there's a remainder, and I made a mistake here, it should be 5. Even though there's a remainder, I don't have to keep going because on percents, I can stop at the hundredths place. Okay. Number 4. Number 4 says the math assessment, there were 16 questions and are now missed 4. How much did he get? What did he get on the test? Again, this is part over total. The tricky part for this one is we know there were 16 problems on the test. What makes this more difficult is that we should not have used 4 for the part, because your grade on a math test is not determined by what part you get wrong, it's but determined by what part you get right. So if there are 16 questions on the test and he got 4 wrong, that means he got 12 right. Now, again, I can't get this to 100, but before I try and do my division like I did on number 3, I actually think I can do a different way. Instead of dividing it right away, I'm going to simplify this. 12 over 16 simplifies to 3 over 4. And then that is something that I could get to 100. So that's just saving myself a step because I know that 4 times 25 is 100. I know that by doing mental math. So I can do 3 times 25. If I can count corners, I can count 25 by 3 and I get 75%, which saves me the time of doing the extra division problem. So the answer is that you got 75% on the test. Last one for this set. It says that the Xbox was refurbished, part over total. Then we know that the total cost is $150. The part, the Xbox only costs part of that. Again, I can't get to 100, but before I go and do the division problem, it probably is best if I try to simplify it. 3 over 15, I can actually simplify that further to 1 over 5, and then that's an easy one. To get to 100, I multiply times 20, I multiply times 20, I get 20 over 100, so it's 20% of the original cost. Okay, you now have a second problem set to do. Go ahead and solve them on your scrap paper, pause your video, and come back and check your answers when you're done. All right, let's get started on these. Number 1, always part over total. I'm going to start abbreviating P over T for part over total. It says there's 50 total students. 47 passed. 47 is my part because only part of the class passed. 50 is total because that's the total number of students. When I set this equal to 100, it's as easy as multiplying by 2. 47 by 2 is 94. So 94% of students passed. Make sure you have that correct on the computer as well as on your paper. 24% of students passed. Number 2, part over total. There's 25 total objectives and she finished 7. 7 is her part, 25 is her total. Set that equal to 100. Multiply by 4, multiply by 4 gives me 28, which means she finished 28% of her objectives. Okay. Make sure you've written that on the computer as well as on your paper. Number 3, Carl invited 40 people to his birthday. 7 said they would not be able to attend. What percent declined their invitation? I know part of the invite list declined. That's 7. I know the total is 40. I try to set this equal to 100. 7, let's see, 40, 80, 120, 160. I cannot get to 100. When I get stuck like that, I actually have to do a little bit of extra work. Division problem, 7 into 40, but that's not that hard because if you know your 4s, you know your 40s. 4 goes into 70 one time. I subtract, I get a remainder of 30, bring down a 0. 4 goes into 307 times. 7 times 4 is 280. I said you could stop there even if you have a remainder, because for percents we can stop at the hundredths place. So we would write 0.17, but we need to write that as a percent, just like we practiced yesterday and the day before. Move the decimal twice. So 17% declined. 17% of the invitees declined. If you kept going, you would have gotten, sorry, this should say 40. You would have gotten 17.5%. But if you left it at 17%, you should mark it all the way correct. Number 4, there are 7 sixth graders in robotics, and there are 90 sixth graders, and 75 of them have signed up for after school. What percent of the students in after school clubs are robotics? Okay, so for number 4, we have part over total. What's tricky about this is I know my part is 7 because it's asking about how many kids are in robotics. My total, I have to decide if it's 90 or 75. 90 or 75. It's actually 75 because it's just asking out of the kids who signed up for after school, not all the kids in the grade. So I then again have to do a division problem. 7 divided by 75. 0 times goes into 70 0 times. 9 times 75 going to 700. It goes into it. Let's check. 75 times, I think probably 9. I'm going to check that first. 5, carry the 4, 675. Yep, that gets me pretty close. So I'm going to say 9. 9 times 75 is 675. I subtract, I have a remainder, but that's okay because I'm already in the hundredths place. So my final answer is not 0.9, it's not 0.09, it's 9% are in robotics. Okay. Number 5, it says that Damari attempted part over total. He attempted 12, he completed 8. 8 over 12 equals x over 100. Cannot get from 12 to 100. I'm going to try and simplify this. I divide them both by 4 and I get 2 over 3. I can't get to 100, but 2 over 3 is a much easier division problem to do than 8 divided by 12. So I do 2 divided by 3. Sorry, what mistake did I make? The top number has to go on the inside. 2 into 3, 0 times. 3 goes into 26 times. I subtract. 3 goes into 26 times. It's okay that I have a remainder because I can stop at the hundredths place. So 0.66 gives me a final answer of 66%. Okay, make sure that you've entered your answers correctly on this document. You now have 2 more questions to do for exit ticket. When you write your answer, put it in a complete sentence underneath. So if it says what percent of the meals have meat in them, blank percent of meals have meat in them. You have 2 questions on your exit ticket. You have another Khan assignment today, and then you'll take a quiz on Khan tomorrow, so make sure you're keeping up with that. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to text or call. My number is 847-769-4731, and I will see you back here tomorrow for our last class before spring break. Take care.